Welcome to another short tutorial. If you are looking for a simple surveillance camera effect, this is how you can do it in Fusion. I will do this tutorial in two steps. First, I will create the screen overlay with the text elements or motion graphic elements, and then in the second part I will do some quick image distortion to get the bad quality cheap camera effect. So first, for the overlay, I do this separately so that I can put this overlay whenever I use it, can make it as a reusable element. I just create a new Fusion composition. The length can be changed afterwards, and double click to go into Fusion. I'm starting with a rectangular overlay, and a simple way to get this is to start with the background node. I make that white because white is the color of my elements that I'm creating. And now I will just cut out the pieces that I need. Now, one way you could do this, you could create a polyline, just make a polyline mask, and as long as you don't connect it and give it some border width, you can draw lines like this. But since I want it exactly rectangular, I do it a slightly simpler way. Well, it's not too difficult this way either, but I prefer to use a full rectangle and then cut out what I don't need. This way I can get it in a symmetrical way very easily, because this rectangle is by default centered, so everything is centered, all the angles are rectangular by default, obviously. And now all I need to do is I need to cut out pieces. So to cut out pieces, I will always copy and then paste instance. So I start with the rectangle itself, I copy it, Ctrl+C, and then do the paste instance, Ctrl+Shift+V. And with the paste instance, you see the green line, which indicates this is an instance copy. I get a second rectangle, which is completely connected to the first. Actually, let me turn off the checker underlay, so on both sides, so you see it against black background, which looks nice. On the second one now I have just merged them. Instead I select subtract. Now everything vanishes because I'm subtracting a rectangle of the same size from its original one. Now what I need to do is de-instance something, and I de-instance the border width. So this means all the other parameters are still connected via the green line. Both are exactly the same. If I change anything, both change at the same time. But on the border width, I used de-instance, and now this parameter is independent. So now I can change the border width of the second rectangle. Since I make it now smaller via the width, and subtract it from the first, that's why I get a border width on the resulting image. So I have subtracted two rectangles from each other. The second one is now, because of the border width, slightly smaller than the first one, and that's why I get this shape. Now I will repeat this process, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+Shift+V, paste instance. And now I don't care about the border width. Now I will subtract these gaps that I had before. For this I will use the width and height parameter. Let me de-instance the width and height. And on this rectangle now I can, where is it? Here. I will do this. And you see here, this is the last output. Let me put this to the right, that's more intuitive. So left is the previous one, right is the final background. And here I'm now cutting out because I made a rectangle which is much larger and subtracted. Same thing one more time. Ctrl+C, Ctrl+Shift+V, and again de-instance width and height. And on the second time I am making it smaller and go to the side. Yeah, so this way I get these 4 photo corners, or this camera overlay effect. and everything is still adjustable very easily. I can still make the whole thing longer like this, move it up, down. I can move the center, and I'm moving everything at once because everything is linked together via this instance mode. So just some minor adjustments to make it look pretty and to make it suitable for what I want to do next. And that's already it. Next, I want to add the text elements, and I want to add a red blinking dot. Let's start with the blinking dot. For this, I can again add a background node. So let me merge that directly over. And this time I need a red background. And of course not the full background, but I can mask it out with an ellipse mask. Now I get, let me mask the background itself. Now I get a red dot, which is way too large and in the wrong place. Let me fix that and put it up here, even smaller, please. Like this, and a slightly soft edge. Now, how do I get this dot to start blinking? And there's a quite an easy way. I can animate it and then loop the animation. So first, to animate, I start at frame 0, and I will just animate. I could actually animate the ellipse. Yeah, let's do that. So you can animate the ellipse, or you can animate the merge, or even the background, doesn't matter. Just one parameter which makes this appear and disappear. So let me animate the ellipse, put it on level 1 at frame 0. Then at frame 10, I make it fully transparent. And then at frame 20, I bring it up again. Now I have the beginning of my animation. What I now need is I need this to repeat. And to do this, I can go to the spline editor and there create a loop. So my only animated parameter is the level of this ellipse. And let me go to the beginning. You see here this peak from the animation, value 1 and till frame 0, then it drops down, then it goes up again. And if I select these 3 keyframes in the spline editor, do a right click and select set loop, then the selected keyframes automatically get looped. They repeat forever. Yeah? So this way I have a repeating blinking light. Quite simple. Now the text elements, for this I can just merge over a text plus element. I take the text from here, text, merge it over. And in the text, let's start with a rec, one element which just says record. And I want to position it here next to the dot, make it a bit smaller. Let me go into the text, make it a bit smaller, even smaller maybe. Too much. And maybe use a font which is more edgy, like Courier maybe, like the typewriter font, you know. Okay, and with this, let me also add 4 more elements, and I will quickly do this in hyperspeed so you're not getting bored. I just copy and paste. Now, in the last text element down here, I want to do actually something slightly different. I want to have a number which increases frame by frame. So similar to a time code. I'm not building a complete time code. I just want a sequential number. That's fine for me. So to get this, I can do right-click on the styled text and add expression. And what happens is, you see now the number that I had typed here gets inserted into this text with a parenthesis. And this text is a function which says print out whatever is written in here. So these expressions are for basically simple programming, and there's now an instruction which came automatically which says print this into the text, and I want to print more. And what I can do here is add 2 dots, which is used to concatenate something to the previous element. So I have this element which is being printed, and then after the 2 dots I just write time. And this is a variable which returns the frame number. And once I go out here, you see it. So I'm at frame 132, and the last number added here after my number, after the 312, is 132. And if I change the frame, you see that the frame number is automatically added here. So with this, we could also create a custom time code. This would require a little bit of programming in here, a little bit of not really serious programming, but some mathematical expressions, and we could come up with a time code, or we could come up with random numbers or whatever we like. So for this simple example, I just add the frame number here, and that's already it. Okay, so this is my overlay. Let me connect it to media out so that I can use it. Now when I go back to the edit, I can, whenever I want, I can just overlay this over an existing clip, and I can still change the length here. The reason why this works is that nothing in the Fusion comp is time dependent. So my animation, I made this infinite loop, so even at a time which didn't exist when I created this animation, this overlay will still work perfectly fine. Now that I have created my overlay, I want to create some image distortions, and you could potentially do some of this directly in the color page of Resolve. But here I want to go again into Fusion, because some of these effects, again, if you want to use some masks or some custom effects, you have more flexibility in Fusion. So let me go into Fusion, new Fusion clip. And now this part is a bit annoying because by default, if I go on the Fusion tab, it sends me to the top video clip. Let me just move it to the side. And I move back here, and now I have actually the video clip alone on which I want to work. Now on this, let me start with the color corrector. Now there are lots of different color tools in Fusion. The color corrector is the one I find easiest to use, or well, maybe just a matter of preference. I desaturate it a bit. I don't want to go all black and white. Maybe I leave a little bit of color because I like it, but I desaturate the whole thing a bit. You can also use brightness and contrast here. This is a different color node. Now basically everything you can do here, you can do in the color corrector as well. But just to show you a few different tools, let me use this to make a vignette. So I will mask this brightness and contrast with an ellipse mask, like this, and then I will, let's say, reduce the gamma. And you see this is the wrong side, so I can invert the ellipse and give it a soft edge, obviously. Don't do this for beautiful footage, but well, again, nice is not the desired outcome here, so yeah, let me continue. Another thing what I can do is I want to add a distortion which moves up the image, you know, like from old TVs when you had these stripes that move up. And different ways to do this, I will do it with a noise. So I get a noise control spacebar for all the tools. Noise, let's see what we have here. Fast noise, add. Now this gives me noise like this. Actually, let me add it directly into the flow and add a rectangular mask to get a stripe. And then I can change the noise so that it's much more dense. So in the fast noise, I have the scale parameter, which I can go even, let's brutally go up here. Okay, let's go up to 200 in this case. And maybe I make it even thinner, the rectangle here, and give it again a soft edge. So I just want to make a thin distortion type of stripes here. And now I can move this rectangle up and down, right? And let me do a quick animation with this. So at frame 0, I put it, should it go up or should it go down? Up to you. Let me, maybe I want to have it move down. I think this is the more typical scenario. Well, you don't see this nowadays that often anymore. Anyhow, rectangle, where is my center here? I animate the center at frame 0, and then let's say it shall take, what, half a second, 1 second, let's say 20 frames to move from up all the way down. And maybe I give it a gap, I even move it further down. And you might already guess what I'm doing next. I will set a loop again, this time for this displacement in the spline editor, same way I did before. This time it's a center point and not just a single parameter, but it works the same way. Select both keyframes, right click, set loop, and here is my loop. So it automatically jumps up and then comes down again. So now, is this a realistic distortion or not? I let you decide. Of course, you can do more fancy things and give it some zigzag edge or something else. But for now, this is the idea. One more thing I want to do, I want to give this whole a little bit of a fisheye lens distortion. And I think I will do that because it's a lens effect. I will do it before my noise distortion. To add this, I add it via Control Spacebar Lens Distort, or there are different. Let me just go with the first. And lens distortion can be used a lot in compositing. For example, when you want to match footage from different cameras and you have one with different lenses, and then you want to do, for example, set extension, then you might, if you have a very distorted image, maybe you have to undistort it first and straighten it out, then combine it, and then maybe add distortion again at the ends to get the final view in a correct way. Here I'm just using it for artistic effect, so just distort, and you have different lens models here and can adjust it by hand and so on. I just go for the first one, which says fisheye. And I just make it a bit extreme. Let me see it against black. Perhaps I don't want all the black edges, so I can use a transform here and just scale it up a bit. But I do want to have a bit of, let me do it from here. I do want a bit of this bent feeling, so maybe I do leave a little bit of black here. So just so that you can get a hint of what is happening, not only by the distortion of the bricks here, but also a little bit by this edge imperfection, which might happen from a bad camera or monitor. Okay, one thing which I still can do is add some noise overall, and that I might do maybe just before my fast noise distortion, after the lens distortion. So let me, to get overall noise, a quick way I can use grain, film grain. Let me use the first one again. Let's see if this works. And I see the grain. Let's see before and after, left and right. Or even better, let me see it side by side, just to get a feeling for the strength of the effect. And I will increase, first let's increase the strength to actually see what's happening. And I think I want to make it really rudimentary and increase the size, have some really thick distortion rather than grain. but then I put the strength to something intermediate, maybe. Is this looking bad enough? No, feel free to play with the parameters. Okay. Yeah, so this is my final terrible security camera. Actually, I think I might even tint it like, you know, for some reason these camera effects are usually a bit green or so, from like to emulate these old style CRT monitors. Now my idea here is not to create the worst security camera ever, but just to give you a few different ideas of how you can put things together to get this broken camera, old camera, vintage camera, cheap cell phone, whatever effect you want to achieve. So here I desaturated, I put the vignette mask on it, took a lens distortion for this fisheye view, then added film grain for the general noise, and at the end a fast noise which moves up the frame. And with this, let me end by showing you how it looks all together. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this little effect. Please also check out this video for a full training course in Blackmagic Fusion and subscribe to this channel for more to come. Thanks for watching, see you next time.